humanity's last stand. The first contact was sudden, a silent rupture in the sky that split the clouds like a wound. People around the world stared in awe before panic erupted. The ships were unlike anything seen, massive and ominous. They hovered without sound, casting dark shadows over cities. Communications went dead as electromagnetic pulses swept the planet. It was the beginning of humanity's darkest hour. Within hours, entire cities fell to destruction, firestorms ignited by beams of unimaginable power. The alien forces known only as the Veil were relentless and merciless. Their technology was beyond comprehension, rendering most weapons useless. Nations collapsed, governments dissolved, and chaos reigned. Humanity scrambled for survival, retreating to underground bunkers in remote regions. The Veil had one objective: domination. They hunted survivors like prey, their drones scanning forests, deserts, and oceans. The sky was filled with smoke and the constant hum of enemy ships. Leaders worldwide tried to unite, but mistrust and despair hampered efforts. The United Nations fractured, replaced by desperate militias and scattered resistance groups. Scientists worked frantically to understand the invaders, seeking any weakness, but hope was fading. John Mercer, a former military pilot turned resistance fighter, witnessed the fall of New York from the sky. His unit was decimated, but he escaped with a small band of survivors. Together they vowed to fight back, no matter the cost. Their journey would become a symbol of defiance. The Veil's war machines were not just weapons, they were psychological terrors. They projected nightmarish illusions, turning friends against each other. Communities broke down under the strain of fear and paranoia. Trust became a rare commodity. Despite everything, pockets of humanity resisted fiercely. Small towns in the Rockies, remote islands in the Pacific, and Siberian tundras became battlegrounds of guerrilla warfare. The resistance used hit-and-run tactics, sabotaging supply lines and stealing technology. Each victory was a fragile spark. Meanwhile, scientists uncovered chilling truths. The Veil were harvesting resources, including humans, for bioengineering experiments. Entire populations were disappearing, taken to massive ships orbiting Earth. The true scale of the invasion was far worse than anyone imagined. Amidst the carnage, stories of heroism emerged. Doctors treating the wounded with limited supplies, pilots taking impossible risks, and civilians hiding and protecting their families. These stories became the heartbeat of resistance. They reminded people why survival mattered. John's group intercepted a transmission from an underground facility in Siberia. The message hinted at a secret weapon, something that could turn the tide. With dwindling hope, they set out into the frozen wasteland. The odds were against them, but desperation fueled their resolve. The journey was brutal. The cold gnawed at their bodies, and alien patrols hunted them relentlessly. Friends were lost to frostbite, ambushes, and betrayal. But they pressed on, driven by the chance of salvation. The frozen silence was broken only by whispered plans and quiet prayers. They reached the facility, a relic of Cold War paranoia repurposed for Earth's last defense. Inside, the scientists had developed a prototype, a hybrid technology blending human ingenuity with recovered alien tech. It was risky, untested, but it was their only hope. As John activated the weapon, alarms blared. The Veil had tracked them. The battle that followed was fierce, both sides aware that failure meant extinction. John's team fought with everything they had, knowing the future of humanity rested on this moment. Though the weapon was powerful, it was imperfect. The energy released was enough to cripple the Veil's control systems temporarily. It bought humanity time, a precious, dangerous reprieve, but the cost was high. The facility collapsed, burying many in rubble. John and a handful escaped, carrying the hope of that weapon's technology. The Veil withdrew temporarily, confused and wounded, but the war was far from over. Humanity's greatest test had just begun. In the aftermath, survivors regrouped, sharing what they'd learned. The cost of victory was staggering: nearly 80% of Earth's population lost. Cities were deserts, families torn apart. But the spark of resistance was alive and growing. Now, the question wasn't just survival, it was how to fight back and reclaim their world. The next chapters would reveal humanity's grit, ingenuity, and willingness to sacrifice everything. The war was no longer one of despair, it was a battle for hope. Part 2. The Rising Resistance. The temporary retreat of the Veil sparked a fragile hope across the battered Earth. Resistance groups from every corner of the planet began to communicate, sharing knowledge and tactics. Old rivalries were set aside as survival became the only priority. The world was fractured, but unity emerged from the ruins. John Mercer's team became a symbol of this new resistance. Their success with the Siberian weapon prototype inspired others to fight harder. He traveled from camp to camp, sharing strategies and rallying survivors. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened their resolve. Scientists raced to improve the hybrid technology, adapting alien tech to human needs. They faced countless failures, experiments that exploded or mutated subjects, but they learned fast. The human spirit, fueled by desperation, refused to give in. Innovation became their greatest weapon. Communication was key. Makeshift radio networks linked resistance cells across continents. Messages flew through static and interference, coordinating ambushes and supply drops. The Veil's advantage was their technology, but humanity's was its unpredictability. Raids grew bolder. Small teams ambushed supply convoys, stealing energy cores and weapons. These raids disrupted the Veil's operations, forcing them to spread their forces thinner. The alien invaders began to lose ground, confusion creeping into their ranks. John trained new fighters, teaching them guerrilla tactics and survival skills. Many were young and untested, but fierce. The desperation to protect their families and homes turned them into warriors. John saw hope in their eyes, a fire that could not be extinguished. However, the cost of resistance was immense. Every battle meant loss, friends, towns, and lives. The landscape of Earth was scarred by war. Cities were graveyards and forests burned. Survivors grieved constantly, yet fought on. Giving up was not an option. Amidst this chaos, a breakthrough came from Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant biologist working in a hidden lab beneath the Andes. She discovered a vulnerability in the Veil's bioshield, a microscopic flaw in their armor. This tiny crack could be exploited to disrupt their defenses. The resistance adapted their weapons, coating bullets and explosives with a new compound developed from Elena's research. Early tests showed promise. Infected drones faltered and soldiers suffered critical damage. The tide was beginning to turn, but the Veil were far from defeated. Meanwhile, intelligence reports revealed the location of the Veil's main command ship orbiting Earth. It was massive, a fortress in the sky controlling the invasion's coordination. Destroying it would cripple the alien forces and potentially end the war, but reaching it meant an impossible mission. John volunteered for the strike team. The operation required pilots, engineers, and soldiers skilled in stealth and combat. Training was brutal and fast. Failure was not an option. The team bonded quickly, aware that this mission was humanity's last hope. As they prepared, tensions ran high. The Veil launched counterattacks, trying to prevent any coordinated assault. The skies were battlegrounds where dogfights raged between stolen alien crafts and human fighters. Losses mounted, but morale remained high. The strike team infiltrated a captured alien ship to learn the control systems. John and his comrades adapted human interfaces, hacking through alien firewalls. Each small success brought them closer to understanding the enemy's weaknesses. They became a thorn in the Veil's side. The night before the assault, John looked at a faded photo of his family. He wondered if he would ever see them again, if this war would finally end. The weight of survival pressed down, but so did hope. It was a burden he accepted willingly. The attack on the command ship was chaotic and brutal. Fighters swarmed the perimeter, missiles streaked through space, and explosions rocked the hull. Inside, the strike team fought corridors filled with Veil warriors, relying on Elena's compound to break their defenses. Every step forward was a battle. John faced the Veil commander, a towering figure with glowing eyes and cold intelligence. Their fight was fierce and personal. The commander underestimated human will, but John's determination was relentless. With a final strike, he brought the alien down. The destruction of the command ship sent shockwaves through the Veil forces. Their invasion faltered as control signals were lost and units turned on each other. The resistance exploited this chaos, launching coordinated attacks worldwide. The momentum had shifted. Humanity reclaimed cities, restored communications, and began rebuilding. The victory was bittersweet, billions lost and scars left on the planet. Yet, the resilience of those who survived was undeniable. They had endured the unthinkable and emerged stronger. John stood among survivors, knowing the fight was far from over but confident in humanity's spirit. The war had changed them all, but it had not broken them. The road to true peace would be long, but hope burned bright. Part 3. The Final Gambit. The cold light of dawn crept over the shattered cityscape as John Mercer surveyed the front line. The resistance forces gathered, tense but determined. Maya crouched nearby, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes, her youthful energy a stark contrast to the battle-worn veterans. Captain Reed barked orders, steadying nerves. Lena set up her equipment, ready to intercept enemy signals. John's mind raced. The Veil had retreated, but were regrouping for a devastating counterattack. The fate of humanity hinged on the upcoming assault on the Veil's last stronghold, hidden deep within a scorched forest. Alina approached, holding a small vial filled with glowing liquid, the improved bioweapon compound ready for deployment. "We've tested it on drones," Alina said softly. "This batch should penetrate their armor completely." John nodded, grateful for the breakthrough. "We need every advantage. This is our chance." Maya volunteered to lead a scout team to gather intel inside the forest. Her small group moved swiftly and silently, weaving through the underbrush. The forest was thick with alien machinery, twisted and unnatural, pulsing with an eerie glow. Maya's pulse quickened. They were close to the Veil nest. Back at camp, Captain Reed coordinated with resistance leaders worldwide, sensing attacks to divide the enemy's focus. Lena's fingers danced over her keyboard, hacking into Veil communications. "I'm in," she said, voice tense. "They're planning a full-scale assault at midnight. We have less time than we thought." John gathered his team. Elena's compound is our trump card, but we need to strike hard and fast. Maya, your team will disrupt their defenses from the inside. Reed, you lead the ground assault. Lina, keep us one step ahead. As night fell, the forest became a battlefield. Explosions shattered the silence as Maya's squad sabotaged power nodes. They moved like shadows, planting charges and taking out patrols. Maya's heart pounded with fear and excitement. This was the fight they'd trained for. Captain Reed's forces clashed with waves of Veil warriors at the perimeter. The bioweapon compound spread chaos among the enemy ranks, disabling shields and sowing confusion. John fought side by side with his comrades, each strike fueled by years of loss and hope. Suddenly, a piercing howl cut through the air. From the darkness emerged Zerath, the Veil commander, towering and terrifying. His eyes glowed with fury as he unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The resistance faltered under his brutal assault. John charged, dodging beams and debris. The two clashed violently, John's axe against Zerath's alien blade. Every strike echoed with desperation and willpower. Alina and Lina coordinated from the rear, remotely triggering explosions that distracted the commander. Maya's team breached the core of the nest, releasing the bioweapon compound directly into the Veil's control systems. The alien soldiers staggered, their coordination breaking down. The battlefield shifted as confusion spread through the enemy lines. Captain Reed rallied the resistance fighters for a final push. For Earth, he shouted. The united front advanced, overwhelming the disoriented Veil forces. Ezrath, weakened and enraged, attempted to flee but was cornered by John. Their final duel was fierce. Zerath's strength waned as John's resolve hardened. With a last, decisive blow, John struck the commander down. The alien leader's death sent a shockwave through the Veil ranks without guidance. They retreated in chaos. The resistance secured the nest, freeing captured humans and dismantling alien machinery. Elena's compound continued to neutralize remaining threats, proving humanity's ingenuity. Maya's squad emerged victorious but exhausted, their bravery forever etched in history. In the aftermath, survivors gathered around makeshift fires, their faces illuminated by flickering hope. John looked at his comrades, scarred, but alive. They had lost much, but this victory marked the turning point. The war was ending. Lina worked tirelessly to restore global communications. Messages of peace and rebuilding spread across continents. Captain Reed began organizing relief efforts, knowing the road ahead was still long. Alina studied the alien technology, seeking ways to prevent future invasions. Maya sat quietly, reflecting on the friends lost and the future to fight for. John approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "We survived because we fought together," he said. "Now, we rebuild." The scars of war would never fully heal, but humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever. Against impossible odds, they had won. The cost was staggering. Over 80% of the population lost, but their resilience secured a new dawn. Earth was free. Part 4. Beyond Survival. Weeks after the fall of the Veil Command nest, Earth was quiet but not safe. Resistance leaders gathered at hidden strongholds, exchanging encrypted reports about strange signals. Drones still patrolled the skies in rogue patterns, acting without direction. And in the deep ocean trenches, something massive had stirred. The war wasn't over, it had only changed. John Mercer stood on a windswept cliff overlooking a shattered city, listening to the low hum of recovered Veil tech behind him. Elena approached with grim news. "There's activity on the dark side of the moon. We think it's a fallback fleet." John's jaw tightened. So they didn't all leave. Lena decoded intercepted pulses to stress calls, not from Earth, but sent to somewhere else. "They're calling reinforcements," she said, eyes fixed on the screen. "We have weeks, maybe less." Humanity had won a battle, but the larger war loomed across the stars. In Siberia, underground labs worked around the clock to reverse engineer a Veil star drive. The goal wasn't just to defend Earth but to strike back, beyond the atmosphere. Captain Reed led the formation of Earth's first unified orbital fleet, cobbled together from alien wreckage and human willpower. They named it Project Phoenix. Maya, now a symbol of bravery for a new generation, joined a team tasked with recon into the upper stratosphere. The wreckage of the command ship still floated in low orbit, surrounded by drifting drones. Inside, Maya found a Veil archive: coordinates, star charts, biological experiments, proof that Earth had never been the first. Alina analyzed the data and uncovered the truth. The Veil were part of a wider network, a coalition of species driven by conquest and survival. Earth had repelled one army, but the empire it belonged to would not tolerate failure. "If they come again," she warned, "it won't be just the Veil, it'll be worse." In response, humanity began building not only to recover, but to defend and retaliate. Orbital defense grids, fusion reactors, and spacefaring vessels took shape. Children were raised learning alien languages, biology, and tactics. Earth had become a fortress but also a forge. Moral debate raged within the Council of Earth, newly formed from surviving nations. Should humanity wait or strike first? Some argued for peace and protection. Others called for vengeance. John sat silently during the debates, his heart still torn between survival and justice. The decision came when a scout drone returned from Saturn's orbit. Its final transmission showed a Vale cruiser, active and repairing. The Council voted Earth would no longer wait. The first interstellar offensive in human history was Captain Reed led Expedition 1, a task force of volunteers and soldiers. Maya joined the strike team, trained in zero-G combat and alien tactics. Alina uploaded virus code into Vale Tech, designed to short out their systems in minutes. Lena remained behind, overseeing operations from Earth's new command center beneath Greenland's ice. They launched in silence, 3 ships cloaked by Vale stealth drives. As they reached the outer rings of the solar system, they detected more enemy signals to cruisers, dormant but waking. Maya's voice cut through the silence. "We strike fast, no hesitation." The mission was clear: disable, destroy, and send a message. The assault was brutal and swift. Vale drones poured from the cruisers, but human tactics, erratic, emotional, unpredictable, broke their formations. Elena's code shut down internal power cores mid-battle. John, in command of the lead ship Aegis, ordered a final torpedo strike that ripped the flagship apart. When the dust settled, 1 cruiser remained intact. Reed ordered it boarded. Inside they found pods, cryogenic chambers filled with hybrid creatures, half Vale, half human. A sickening realization dawned. The Vale had planned to colonize Earth using its own people. The Council received the data and reacted with horror. John made his decision. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore, we're fighting for every world the Vale touched." It was no longer defense, it was liberation. As Earth celebrated its first true victory beyond its skies, new plans formed. Expedition 2 would travel to the source of the signals, the Vale's home system, not for revenge, but to end the threat permanently. Humanity, once prey, had become the hunter. Yet even as hope grew, Elena warned of something darker. The Vale weren't the top of the food chain. Something else sent them here. Her voice trembled. Something older. John looked to the stars, his reflection in the ship's glass. "Then we'll be ready." Behind him, Earth turned slowly, alive, rebuilding, remembering. The war had forged them, but the future would define them. Epilogue: the quiet after the storm. Earth survived, but not in triumph, only silence remained. John disappeared into solitude. Elena worked to heal what the Vale left behind, and Lena kept watching the stars. The last alien signal wasn't a cry for help, it was a warning, sent not to the Vale, but to something else. The storm had passed, but in the quiet, something out there had started listening.